Let me check the hot sheets.
These are the hot sheets. Best investigative reporting on the planet.
Hey, what's up, world? Before I get into the topic of this video, I just want to let my Odyssey subscribers know that Odyssey did not upload a video I posted like 12 days ago. So if you come over to either my YouTube channel or my BitChute channel, you will see that there's this video, this 2.5 hour long video titled Adolf Hitler's Grandfather and World War II. Now, for some reason, Odyssey did not auto-upload this video. They've uploaded every other video of mine, but for some reason, Odyssey did not auto-upload this video. Now, I don't know if it's because I don't have enough of their cryptocurrency or whatever they use, like their site is weird, but I just needed to bring this to your attention, to those people who follow me on Odyssey, and I needed to bring it to your attention because this video sort of is going to be playing into what I talked about in this video. So, let's get to the point of this video. Now, the point of this video is to talk about the conflict in the Ukraine. And I'm going to be talking about that momentarily. First, I want to talk about this sort of related article that I found on the New York Post a couple of days ago. So there's this article on the New York Post titled, Google Infiltrated by Religious Cult, Ex-Employee Claims in Lawsuit. So you have this Google employee, or this ex-Google employee, who is suing Google because he's claiming that he was fired after questioning the affiliation or the connection that Google has with this cult out in California. So let me just read the article. This article doesn't really get into all of the details surrounding his firing. There is another article shared on the Daily Mail. It was actually just published by the Daily Mail today. That gives a lot of details pertaining to how he was fired and how he came across this cult that seems to be overly represented over at Google. I didn't want to read that article because it's a long article, and I don't think that all of the details are very necessary. The necessary things about this cult are pretty much covered in this article, so let me just cover them really quick. I guess I'll just start from the top. So, Google has been accused of employing a large number of people belonging to an unusual religious group in California. The Fellowship of Friends is a group that believes most of us are living in a state of waking sleep.
We are living in an artificially induced state of consciousness that resembles sleep.
Oh, goddamn hacker, that second time night that asshole was cut in.
According to the New York Times, the Fellowship of Friends is a cult-like religious sect that's infiltrated Google. The group has reportedly gained a powerful position at the tech giant and has started to hire more members of the cult-like sect. The New York Times says the takeover has been happening for years. A former employee is now said to be suing over the situation. Former Google employee Kevin Lloyd told the Times, "Once you become aware of this, you become responsible." I don't really know what the hell that means. That's why Lloyd is bringing a legal case against Google. No, that's not why he's bringing a legal case against Google. He's bringing a legal case against Google because he was fired. But whatever. He's using a lawyer who won $6.5 million for a client who claimed she hadn't been promoted because she wasn't a member of the Fellowship of Friends. Now, when I read this detail in another article, it appears like this person was working for a different company. Like here, if you read this, it seems like this person was working for Google, and this person had won a $6.5 million settlement or a $6.5 million lawsuit while they were working at Google. But in another article, it makes it as if they were working for a different client, or actually, I'm sorry, different client, for a different company. So this is important either way. There's this person who a couple of years ago, won a $6.5 million lawsuit because they claimed that they weren't promoted because they weren't a member of this group. So this group has not only apparently infiltrated Google, this group has apparently infiltrated other companies as well. So it's unclear how many Google employees are actually members of the fellowship. The group is also known as Living Presence and the Fourth Way School. It has faced multiple damning accusations in the past, and the new lawsuit accuses it of having a history of sex trafficking. I guess this New York Post article isn't that good. Kind of is like only summarizing little bits of information. So it's not this new accusation. It's not like this new lawsuit is bringing forth this damning accusation of a history of sex trafficking. There's actually been other lawsuits against this group for, I guess, sexual abuse of minors. I guess that's a proper way of putting it. And those lawsuits were settled out of court. But I guess this lawsuit is also suggesting that this group is tied to sex trafficking, and Google might be funding or supporting that operation. I think that's what this lawsuit is actually claiming. So anyway, the fellowship was founded by Robert Earl Burton in 1970. He predicted that civilization is doomed, and his group aims to form a new civilization after the one we know now is over. Okay, they reached out to Google. Of course, Google denied any accusations. Google's like, oh no, we have policies in place. Yada, yada, yada. The rest of the article isn't important. The important thing is this thing being claimed here. The group, or the founder, predicted that civilization is doomed, and his group aims to form a new civilization after the one we know now is over. Now, when I read this, it made me think of this line from They Live.
I've been hearing something on the streets the last couple of weeks. Weird stuff. Some sort of epidemic of violence, what they've been saying. I was talking to one old boy, he's from San Anselmo. He told me they got some sort of cult up there. End of the world kind of stuff.
But that's not too important. This simply made me think about that, and I wanted to share this with you. Another bit of information that this article fails to include, which I will just add, is that the lawsuit or other claims against this group have claimed that this person, this guy Robert Earl Burton, he's claimed multiple times, or he's made multiple false claims that the world was going to end. So this is just basically like an end of the world cult. They convince their followers that the world is ending, and thus they have to serve this cult in order to save the world. It's a common, we're the good guy trying to save the world kind of narrative. And this is almost an exact duplicate, or it's an exact mirror of what the club and the primary cult that is behind a lot of things actually believes. Like, they really believe that they're the good guys. They believe that what they're doing is to save civilization or to save humanity. There's a lot that can be said about that topic. However, the point that I want to make is that I do believe that the leaders of the world, I do believe that the club, the club that all of the leaders belong to, I do believe that not only do they believe this, I believe that they are actually trying to make this a self-fulfilling prophecy. I believe that they are intentionally trying to collapse this civilization so that they can restart the whole system and create a new civilization that they will then have more control over. But that's just a theory of mine. Now, the article that I really want to talk about is this article from the Daily Mail titled, "Putin Threatens More Strikes on Kiev if West Supplies Ukraine's Military with Long-Range Missile Systems, as calm is shattered this morning by first attacks on capital in over a month."
Anything about that seem unusual to you?
So this article is about how Russia struck certain targets in the city with long-range missiles. Now, when I read this article, because, I had do this crazy thing called thinking, I sort of thought a couple of things that I wanted to share with you all. The first thing that I thought about is, if Russia is capable of striking Kiev at any moment, because this is what Putin is saying, Putin is threatening more strikes on Kiev if West supplies Ukraine's military with long-range missiles. Well, if Putin is threatening more strikes on Kiev, that means that he has the capabilities of conducting more strikes on Kiev. And he most definitely does. If we look at Russia's long-range missiles, so if we look at this article about Russia's land-based missiles, we see that Russia has an actual very impressive missile arsenal, a very impressive arsenal of long-range missiles. But let's look at some of the ranges on these missiles. So just down here, so this little guy right here has a range of 500 kilometers. However, this other little guy over here has a range of 2,500 kilometers. We have other missiles here that have ranges of up to 11,000 kilometers. Now, these ones with the higher ranges are intercontinental ballistic missiles. They're ballistic missiles of different sorts. But these ones over here are cruise missiles. I guess it doesn't really matter the type of missile that they are. What really matters is the range these missiles have. Now, if we look at the total width of Ukraine, the total width of Ukraine is only 784 miles. Now, when you do the calculation for these kilometers into miles, this is a lot more. Just this one of 2,500 kilometers, I believe that's, let's look at what 3,000 kilometers equals to. It equals to about 1,860 miles. So Russia has missiles that can strike literally anywhere in Ukraine without any problem. Russia can launch these missiles from Russia. They can launch them directly into Ukraine and successfully hit targets in Ukraine. And we know that they can do this successfully because of this strike on Kiev. This strike on Kiev happened when there are no Russian troops. This happened in June. And if we look at a map of Russia and Ukraine in June, this map here is from June 1st, Kiev over here, absolutely no Russian troops by Kiev. So it's interesting. Why did Russia not use these long-range missiles, especially when they had troops right next to Kiev over here? Now, I've wanted to make a video talking about Russia's strategy in Ukraine, and I'll just quickly do that here. Now, the strategy that I believe that Russia was conducting in Ukraine is a very basic strategy that a person would use in a game of chess. Now, for those who don't know how to play chess, the purpose of chess is not to keep all of your pieces. The purpose of chess is to use your lesser pieces into making your enemy move their pieces where you want them to move. Now, let me explain that in better detail. Let me explain that using Ukraine. So here we have a map of Ukraine early on in the war. Early on, Russia attacked from multiple points, from 3 points, from actually technically 4 points, but we'll go with 3 points. We'll say the east, the south, and the north. Now, as time went on, Russia began to pull out of the north and redirect all the troops to the east. Now, the media has reported this as a kind of a military loss on the side of the Russians, but this wasn't a military loss. It was actually, as I was just saying, a very basic tactic that's used in chess. So what Russia really did here was he actually redirected the Ukrainian forces, the Ukrainian supplies. He redirected a large amount of them to the center of Ukraine. See, Putin's main target, at least according to Putin, at least according to the official narrative, was the east. And actually, I want to make a point, which is that Russia actually isn't at war with Ukraine, which is another very interesting thing. Here's another article that I came across in May, which was that Russia may declare war on Ukraine. Now, when I read this, I was like, wait a second, isn't Russia already at war with Ukraine? And then, of course, I looked into it, and I'm like, oh, that's right. Russia's not at war with Ukraine. They're conducting a quote-unquote special military operation. What's the purpose of this special military operation? To kill as many fucking Russians as possible? Like to have as many Russian troops and as many Russian military equipment to be destroyed as possible? To me, it doesn't make any sense. Now, of course, I know many, many more Ukrainians have died, and they're just not reporting on it. But to me, it seems like the only real purpose for this special military operation is to cause as much chaos and destruction as possible. But I digress. I don't think I finished explaining this operation. So anyway, as I was saying, the special military operation, according to the official narrative, is simply to capture the East, or to, not to capture the East, but to liberate the East. Because according to the official history, the eastern region of Ukraine wanted to break away since 2014. And since 2014, Ukraine, or the government of Ukraine, has been bombing this region of Ukraine, and basically they've been having like a civil war over here, and Russia has been backing the eastern part of Ukraine over here in that civil war. And then basically, finally, what happened was right before the special military operation, Russia recognized the eastern Ukraine's independence, and now Russia's basically saying that they're conducting this special military operation to liberate eastern Ukraine or to defend them or to do whatever with them, all right? So really, the prize was always the East. So I believe the original tactic, at least this is what I was originally thinking, was that Russia had sent this huge military column down here to redirect the Ukrainian forces and the Ukrainian supplies to this part of Ukraine. And basically this would end up weakening the eastern side of Ukraine, allowing Russia to capture the east. And then basically what Russia has been doing was making the Ukrainian forces chase their tails in the north. So this is actually the Russians' tail. If you imagine this as an animal attacking over here, this is really the main body of the Russian forces and the head of their forces. They sent this brigade over here just as a distraction, and now we have today Russia basically controls all of the east. This has actually not been updated since June 2nd. Russia has a lot more than just this now. But anyway, the point was the curiosity that I had about these missiles hitting Kiev and why Russia is not using their full military force. They're not using all of the weapons in their arsenal, and they're doing what appears to me a half-assed military operation. Now this brings us to our next article, which is Lithuania on the verge of dragging NATO into Ukrainian war? And then Moscow warns it will take action after alliance member blocks trains carrying goods to Russia's Kaliningrad territory. Now see, this is what bothers me, is that to me all of this seems intentional. Let me see if I can get a map of this territory, of the Kaliningrad Russia territory. Where is it? I know I had one up here. My map is gone. I could have sworn I had... Actually, I know where the map was. It was in the missile thing. Let me check my missiles. Russians missile. Okay, here's the Kaliningrad area. I knew the map was here somewhere. It was part of this whole thing. So we have Kaliningrad over here, right? Now this is Russia over here. This is the Baltic Sea. Let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. Kaliningrad here. So Russia is trying to send a train through here. And I believe this is Lithuania. Yes, this is Lithuania. This is Lithuania. So Russia's trying to send a train through here to Kaliningrad to send supplies here. Lithuania is blocking that train. Russia's making a big deal out of it. Russia's saying, oh, this is against a trade agreement that we had in 2002. So Russia's making a big deal. They're saying that they're violating that trade agreement and that this is a direct threat, or it's an act of aggression against Russia or something like that, right? So now the question that we have to ask ourselves is, did Russia expect this to happen? Of course Russia should have expected this to happen. It's like, okay, Russia, when you signed that treaty in 2002, you weren't doing these what are perceived as acts of aggression. Okay, so Russia should have expected this. So we have to ask ourselves why Russia even went through with this, why they went ahead with this, and why they didn't instead use the Baltic Sea. They could have used ships on the Baltic Sea. Now, maybe, I don't know, the Baltic Sea could be frozen up here right now, and it could be my own ignorance, speaking right now. But when I see this, I'm like, okay, why did Russia not just use the Baltic route to supply Kaliningrad? And not only why did Russia not use the Baltic route to supply Kaliningrad, but why has Russia not ended this military conflict already? To me, Russia has the capabilities to end this conflict already. But instead, Russia is pussyfooting around. I mean, they're making threats. Oh yeah, we're going to threaten more strikes on Kiev if the West supplies Ukraine's military with long-range missiles. Look, Putin. Look, Russia. The West is supplying Ukraine with more and more weapons every single week. So why would you drag out this conflict? Why would you make it like this conflict isn't a full-scale war already? You've lost tens of thousands of troops, countless thousands of pieces of military equipment, and yet you're still pussyfooting around. Now, it's really important that people on my Odyssey channel, and that people who watch this video about Adolf Hitler's grandfather and World War II. Because if you understand my take of World War II, you'll understand what I'm getting at here. You'll understand that this is all an artificial conflict. The heads of all of these countries are all part of the same club, and I believe that right now what they're doing in Ukraine is intentional. I believe that they're trying to maximize the amount of chaos and economic consequences of this war. I think that they are intentionally trying to drag this war out, and I think that they're intentionally trying to get it to become a World War III scenario.
Somebody start World War III?